A law from the 19th century, forged for rebellion, now hovers over America once again. Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act, sending troops into cities that defy him. Governors call it tyranny. Trump calls it order. From Portland to Chicago, the battle lines aren't abroad, they're at home. And the fight is for control of the Republic. American President Donald Trump has warned that he may invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807 to send US troops into cities defying his security directives. In the Oval Office on October 6th, Trump said he would consider invoking the law if people were being killed and if courts, governors, or mayors were preventing federal action.
Insurrection Act, under what conditions or terms?
Well, I'd do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed. We have to make sure that our cities are safe. And it's turning out, and we started with D.C. It's been so successful.
Trump also defended his plan to deploy troops, citing rising violence in Chicago and calling the unrest in Portland an insurrection.
I mean, we had a week in Chicago where 11 people were murdered and 38 people were shot. And then we have a governor get up and say, oh, it's safe, we can handle it. He can't handle it. He's an incompetent guy. That's why they threw him out of the family business. They threw him out. I knew the family business very well, and they threw him out, and now he's a governor. And he should say, we'd love to have a safer place. Chicago's a great city potentially. You know, I told you, the head of the Union Pacific Railroad said, sir, save Chicago. It's a great city. It's going to be lost if you don't do it. We have no choice but to do this. And when judges give us rulings that, you know, you don't have to do it, Portland is on fire. Portland's been on fire for years. And not so much saving it. We have to save something else, because I think that's all insurrection. I really think that's really criminal insurrection. So I appreciate the question. These are unsafe places. We're going to make them safe.
On the same day, Trump authorized 300 members of the Illinois National Guard to protect federal agencies, including ICE, amid unrest in Chicago. Illinois officials swiftly challenged the deployment in court, arguing it violates state authority, while a federal judge in Oregon temporarily blocked the administration's attempt to send National Guard troops to Portland. Speaking later in the day to Newsmax, Trump once again described the ongoing turmoil in Portland as pure insurrection and accused Democratic governors of ignoring violence in their cities.
If you take a look at what's been going on in Portland, it's been going on for a long time, and that's insurrection. That's pure insurrection. And then you have a governor get up and say there's absolutely nothing wrong. And you see these places are burning down, like in Chicago with Pritzker.
Separately, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the Trump administration will appeal the Oregon ruling, adding that the president is confident in his legal authority to act.
My second question, a federal judge over the weekend that the president had appointed to the bench in his first term in office basically argued that he could not deploy other states' National Guards to Portland, basically said that it was untethered, his argument, to what is actually happening on the ground. Which local officials in Portland have said that the National Guard is needed there?
With all due respect to that judge, I think her opinion is untethered in reality and in the law. The president is using his authority as Commander-in-Chief, U.S. Code 12406, which clearly states that the president has the right to call up the National Guard in cases where he deems it's appropriate. And if you look at what has happened in Portland, Oregon, for more than 100 nights, I was talking to our law enforcement team about it this morning, for more than 100 days, night after night after night, the ICE facility has been really under siege by these anarchists outside. They have been disrespecting law enforcement. They've been inciting violence. We saw, again, a guillotine rolled out in front of this federal building. And so the president wants to ensure that our federal buildings and our assets are protected. And that's exactly what he's trying to do. And ultimately, in the case in Los Angeles, that judge ruled In the Ninth Circuit, that panel of judges ruled that those troops could remain and that the president was well within his authority to do so. So we are appealing that decision. As you know, we expect a hearing on it pretty quickly, and we're very confident in the president's legal authority to do this, and we're very confident we will win on the merits of the law.
The escalating dispute highlights a growing clash between the White House and Democratic-led states over the limits of federal power in domestic law enforcement. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker has accused Trump of intentionally fostering unrest to consolidate federal power as the state seeks to block the deployment of National Guard troops to Chicago. Pritzker asserted that the administration's plan has been to create chaos and then use it to justify greater control, describing the move as an unconstitutional invasion of Illinois.
I refuse to let Donald Trump, Kristi Noem, and Gregory Bovino continue on this march toward autocracy. Their plan all along has been to cause chaos, and then they can use that chaos to consolidate Donald Trump's power. They think they can fool us all into thinking that the way to get out of this crisis that they created is to give them free rein. Well, that plan will only work if we let it. The state of Illinois is going to use every lever at our disposal to resist this power grab and get Noem's thugs the hell out of Chicago. I'm not afraid. I am not afraid, and I won't back down.
In the more than 40 lawsuits we have filed challenging the Trump administration's unlawful actions, we've explained that the executive branch has to follow the law. A president cannot go beyond the authority granted by Congress with regards to deploying the National Guard.
The lawsuit was filed jointly by the state and the city of Chicago, just hours after a federal judge in Oregon temporarily halted a similar troop deployment to Portland. The joint legal action reflects a rare coordination between state and city leaders, who argue that Trump's order unlawfully overrides their authority and undermines the principle of federalism. It also marks the fourth major lawsuit filed against the president's use of the military in domestic law enforcement, signaling a deepening rift between Washington and Democratic-led states. A separate judge, however, declined to block Trump's order in Illinois, allowing the White House to proceed with federalizing 300 Illinois Guard members and 400 from Texas. The complaint argues that the action breaches the Posse Comitatus Act and the Constitution's 10th Amendment by undermining state authority over law enforcement. The White House maintains that the deployments are necessary to protect federal employees amid what it calls violent unrest. Chicago's mayor and civil rights groups, including the ACLU, contend that the presence of federal forces is deepening tensions. A hearing on Illinois' case is scheduled for later this week as the legal standoff over domestic military use continues to widen. The Trump administration has ordered National Guard troops to Portland, Oregon, and to Chicago to suppress protests and bolster immigration enforcement. National Guard forces were also deployed in recent months to Los Angeles and Washington. At the center of the debate is whether U.S. law permits such deployments. The Posse Comitatus Act, passed in 1878, generally prohibits the use of the military for domestic law enforcement. The law reflects a long-standing American belief that involving the armed forces in civilian affairs poses a threat to individual liberty. However, there are exceptions. National Guard units can operate under the command of state governors, often in emergencies like natural disasters, where the Posse Comitatus Act does not apply. When federalized, the Guard reports directly to the president, and the law does apply. The Trump administration has cited Section 12406 of Title 10 of the U.S. Code, which allows the president to deploy state guard units to repel invasion, suppress rebellion, or enforce federal law. Courts have issued mixed rulings. A federal judge in Oregon blocked the deployment of 200 Guard members to Portland, while the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld Trump's authority in a similar case in Los Angeles. Trump has suggested he could invoke the Insurrection Act if courts continue to block his plans. The act, used 30 times in US history, allows presidents to deploy troops during insurrections, rebellions, or unlawful obstructions.